In this tutorial, we'll show you how to configure various settings related to a trip, applicable to both customers and drivers. To begin, click on the Settings button. On the left side of the menu, you'll find Taxi Settings. Clicking on this will redirect you to the Taxi menu. Within the Taxi menu, you'll see several options. One of these options is the radius. Clicking on this will reveal multiple configurations. The first configuration is the radius to show cars on the map to passengers. This radius is defined in kilometers. For instance, if you define the radius as 10 kilometers, customers will be able to see nearby drivers within a 10-kilometer radius. The next configuration is waiting time charges. When a driver arrives at a location and clicks the Arrive button, a waiting time timer begins. However, there's an exception for the first 60 seconds. No waiting charges are applied for the first minute. Any waiting time beyond that first minute incurs charges. For example, if a driver waits at the same location for 5 minutes, only 4 minutes of waiting time charges will be applied. This same rule applies to driver cancellation timeouts and customer cancellation timeouts. These timeouts are defined in minutes. If a driver cancels a trip within 1 minute of accepting it, they won't have to pay any cancellation charges. However, if they cancel after 1 minute, cancellation charges will apply. The same rule applies to customers. If a customer cancels a trip request within 1 minute of making it, they won't be charged. Finally, there's the pickup radius configuration. When a driver enters the pickup radius, they'll be able to click on a Arrived button. Over here, as you can see, we have defined and displayed the values in meters. For instance, 500 meters. If a driver enters this 500-meter radius, the Arrived button will be enabled. Until then, they cannot click on the Arrived button. We also have a heat map configuration for the driver app. This gives drivers an option to display the type of heat map they want, be it the zone drawn by the admin or the surge areas. The selected heat map will then appear on the driver's application. Next, let's discuss the request mode. This feature will be useful for both the admin and the customer. Depending on the selected option, the request mode will appear. Whether it's right now, schedule, or both, the request mode will be displayed accordingly. We also have another configuration called Payment Confirmation Required. When customers make online bookings, a confirmation is required from the system. Essentially, a driver cannot complete a trip until the customer makes the payment. Once the payment is processed and the system receives confirmation, the driver can complete the trip. This is our payment confirmation system. We also have emergency contact features in both applications. If this configuration is enabled, users can add an emergency contact in both the driver and customer applications. We also have added a toll feature for the driver application. If this configuration is enabled, the driver can add tolls like parking charges, toll charges, and other charges while they are on the trip. If it is not enabled, this option will not appear. Lastly, we have a repayment settlement feature. This is particularly useful in many different countries where customers may face issues with currency exchange for the remaining amount. For example, if a customer's payment amounts to $124 and they give the driver $130, the driver may not have the exact change. In this case, the driver can transfer the change from their wallet to the customer's wallet. The customer can then use this amount for their next trip. If this feature is disabled, the driver cannot enter any amount. They will simply complete the trip, and any remaining transactions will be settled outside the system. Next, we have an option called Update Ongoing Trip Info. If this feature is enabled, when the driver arrives at the location, they can update the customer count as well as the luggage count or switch the vehicle type. This is useful when a customer initially requests a ride for one passenger with one piece of luggage, but when the driver arrives, there are multiple passengers or multiple pieces of luggage. With this feature, the driver can update the account accordingly, and the pricing will adjust based on the updated information. We also offer a Book for Me feature. In the customer application, there is an option to book for oneself or book for others. If this feature is enabled, Customers can book trips for their friends and family members. In the admin panel, we have a guest mode feature. If this feature is enabled, the admin can book a trip for guests without entering any customer details. They can make a simple booking without the customer's information. Another feature is the fare booking utilities. If this feature is enabled, customers can see the fare breakdown from the customer application. If it's disabled, they will not be able to see the fare breakdown or understand how the calculation was applied. Lastly, we have a configuration for applying cancellation charges to the user and driver. When a driver cancels a trip and cancellation charges are applied, those charges are transferred to the users as a reward for their patience. Similarly, if a user cancels the trip, any charges incurred will be transferred to the driver as a reward. This configuration allows the driver or user to receive the reward instead of the company. Another key configuration is the confirmation PIN. If enabled, the driver must enter a PIN before starting the trip. This PIN is shared with the customer. It serves as proof that the customer is embarking on the journey with the correct driver. We also have the token booking feature for drivers. If this configuration is enabled, the driver can start a trip using the token booking feature in the driver application. The last and final configuration is the skip destination feature. If enabled, the customer can skip entering the destination. This is useful when the customer isn't certain about the exact location but knows the route. They can book the trip, and the final calculations will be made at the end of the journey. These configurations provide flexibility for users and drivers. Based on the updated configurations, they can make choices that suit their needs. That's how our quick configuration feature works.